Wanted to, as a way of introducing the Hearing Loss Association, I'm Norman Olshansky, and I'm the president and CEO of the Van Wezel Foundation. And we're here today, obviously, in the Van Wezel. This was the first major theater venue to be looped, and we'll hear more about that in a little while. I met Ed Ogiba about 2 years ago, and I got involved with him because he's a marketing professional and I needed advice in marketing. And he got involved with the foundation, and then he told me about this whole hearing loop thing that he was working on. And he had been working with the Hearing Loss Association, and they had just about ready to put it in at that time to the Selby North Library. And he said, you know, really should have it at the Van Wezel. He said, and he told me about his experiences and what he knew about it in Europe. And from there, he galvanized through a collaboration, which you're going to hear about today, some unbelievable things. I call Ed a community hero because what he's done with the Hearing Loss Association and galvanizing the community, especially the funders, to get excited with this whole project has just been amazing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Hearing Loss Association and its president, Ed Ogiba.
Hearing loss is often called the invisible disability, and it's not apparent that some of us really do have hearing loss at times. We tend to hide it well. And for many people, it's really because they're withdrawn. They're withdrawn from other people. They lead isolated lives. When you cannot hear, you're less involved at work or social events, or not involved at all. You participate less at religious services or community events, or not at all. And you go to the theater less, or not at all. Some of the things that we with hearing loss really miss a lot. I think Helen Keller said it best. When you lose your vision, you lose contact with things. When you lose your hearing, you lose contact with people. Nowhere is this problem more acute than in the two counties here. There are over 110,000 people with hearing loss in Sarasota and Manatee County. That's 16.1% of the population, which is significant because it's the highest incidence in the country. There's no surprise why we have the highest hearing loss in the country. We have seniors, a lot of seniors here. 28.2% of our population are seniors, again, the highest incidence in the country. But this is no longer an affliction just for seniors. There was a study done 2 years ago that showed 1 in 5 teens has hearing loss. 1 in 4 college students have hearing loss. And 28% of our young men and women returning from military service in Iraq and Afghanistan are coming back with serious hearing loss. 18 months ago, our parent organization, the Hearing Loss Association of America, and the American Academy of Audiology joined forces to start a program called Get in the Loop. It was the first time I had ever heard about a hearing loop. And I was stunned to find how prevalent and successful it was all across Europe. All the major theaters in places like London had the system, as did all the major churches. And it was quite prevalent throughout the community. You would find it at retailers and banks and train stations and airports and so on down the list. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a relatively simple system and technology in the end. There are a lot more details for those of you in the press in your press kit, but the easy way to describe it is in a theater like this, an induction loop wire is placed around the basic perimeter of the seating area. And to that is connected an amplifier, a loop amplifier that feeds into the sound system here. And when engaged, this microphone will send the sound into that amplifier, into the loop, which creates a magnetic field that is picked up by any hearing aid or cochlear implant in the audience, being worn by anyone in the audience. You do need a T-coil, which most devices, hearing aids, come equipped with. You do need a T-coil or a telecoil, which is a wireless receiver to receive this sound. But the net of it all is the cleanest, clearest sound there is available for those of us who wear that equipment. And it is something that brings me back to the theater finally to hear it crisply. I had my first chance to hear a theater performance with the loop system on October 5th when the President's Own Marine Band was here. And it was the first time since I've lived in Sarasota that I heard every word from the stage, both said and sung. Probably in the past I would have gotten maybe 50% of what was sung and maybe 75% of what was said. We started promoting the loop about a year ago, and we were so fortunate to run into an organization that was equally interested in getting it started. But there is one of the vendors in St. Petersburg came to us and started putting temporary loops in our meetings at the library. At first at the Selby Library and then at the North Library. And then he provided a grant which gave the North Library a free looping system that really got us started. And I'd like to acknowledge Jim Scott, the president of Complete Hearing Solutions, for that support. That was the start of our strategic plan, but we really felt we had to get our own members to appreciate it, understand it, and become voices to the community. Hearing loop systems, based on my rough mother-in-law research, were relatively unknown at that time. Maybe 10% of people with hearing aids had actually heard of them or actually used them, because the device was originally created as a telecoil to assist us in hearing better on the telephone. We then created an advisory board. We realized that to reach the community, we needed some people to open doors for us. And we were very fortunate that Mayor Suzanne Atwell joined us. We had many local business people like Eileen Hampshire, then at that point the president of the Downtown Sarasota Downtown Sarasota Alliance, and many medical and other leaders came aboard, including Norm, who I'll refer to in a few more minutes. But they started opening doors for us. And our plan was, strategic plan was pretty simple. It was based on the success in Europe. And in Europe, when the theaters went, they created the awareness for this device and its benefits to the community. And they were followed by the churches, which created frequency of use. People tending to go to religious services 2 or 3 times a month. And we targeted to go after the theaters first to try to recreate that successful formula. And that's where I met Norm, and to the comments he had. He was the first theater person, if you will, to acknowledge the real need and understanding. Norm is a very quick study and quickly had more passion and desire for this, realizing it not only would help a great part of the community, it also would be very beneficial to this theater. And he introduced me to Mary Bensel and Stephen Brown. They got equally enthusiastic and went searching for a donation or a donor or support to get one in here. Along the way, we had some off-strategy wonderful successes, but Carajulio's and Owens Fish Camp became the first restaurants, businesses to take on a very new device, a portable device, which again, for those of you in the press, is detailed in your press kit, called a tabletop loop system. And that system allows the restaurant to place it at any table on demand, and it provides wonderful sound for people like me within a circle of about 3 feet, so up to 4 people at a table. Soon the Whole Foods Market took on what is called a super loop. This is a device that had been developed in Europe again, that was being used at many retailers like Marks and Spencer. And if you go to Whole Foods, you'll find it at checkout number 1, which allows the cashier and someone like me to have a meaningful conversation as they're checking out and hearing them pretty well. A few weeks had passed, and Norm came back to me. Van Wezel was not having any takers on a donation for this, and Norm had another idea. He said, what about going to the Selby Foundation? And he set up a meeting, and he introduced me to Dr. Sarah Pappas. For those of you, I know there are probably many of you in this audience have had one of those 15-minute moments, but I was granted 15 minutes, and I knew I had 15 minutes and not more than that to make the sale. And Sarah at the beginning was like most people in the community, like I was 18 months ago, had never heard of a loop system. She probably asked me the most penetrating questions, which was wonderful. I really appreciated her very early enthusiasm. But it got to about the 12 and 13-minute point, and I was wondering if I would ever get a chance to close the sale here and ask for something. And then Sarah asked me something that will always be the turning point for me in this whole process of trying to get into the community. She looked at me and simply said, how many theaters do you need? I was amazed at that point. I didn't really fully understand what she was saying, but I went back to our model of Europe and said, we need the majority of the theaters. We need at least 6 theaters. And she simply said, well, you only need 5 more. You got Van Wezel, go find 5 more. The theaters, and there was no special order to this. The first 5 theaters I approached, along with Norm, enthusiastically wanted to join the program and seek a grant. I went back to Sarah as she requested. This was about 3 weeks before the submission was due. And she said, well, there are 3 weeks left. I encourage you to see if you can get a few more. At that point, Sertoma came forward. And I'll be introducing in a minute Scott Rushing, who was at the time the president of Sertoma. They came forward to underwrite Van Wezel, and so we were left with 5 theaters. But by the time the grant was due, we had added 5 more theaters to submit 10 theaters, actually accounting for 13 stages in the 2 counties. And we also started at this point getting interest across the rest of the community. Churches started coming forward, like First United and Venice Presbyterian. hearing organizations like the Ear Research Foundation. And the Community for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, an organization we have a strong alliance with, came forward requesting one for the Glasser-Schoenbaum Human Services complex, which houses 17 other organizations to help the community. And we had some community organizations show some great interest. The Selby Library, the Senior Friendship Center in Sarasota. At that point, an anonymous family foundation came forward. They realized that we had attracted a fair number of nonprofits that wanted this loop system and couldn't afford it. And they offered a matching grant for it. At this point, I am really honored and so proud to announce that the Selby Foundation awarded us everything we asked for. 10 theaters, 13 stages, and this is a multi-dimensional loop grant. It includes a loop grant for each performance hall that is mentioned. It includes a box office loop system. This is very similar to the device you'll find at Whole Foods that will be placed in one box office. And it includes 5 loop receivers. This is a device that someone who doesn't have a T-coil or is not wearing a hearing aid can use to engage the performance. And at this point, I would like the theaters that are receiving the Selby Foundation grant to please join me on the stage and just announce who's here and representing one. If you could please join me on the stage.
The Ear Research Foundation at the Silverstein Institute.
The Friendship Cafe at Senior Friendship Centers in Sarasota.
The Glasser-Schoenbaum Human Services Center hosting the Community for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Also receiving a grant will be the Selby Library and the Unity Church. I'd also like to acknowledge we have some of the organizations that are already looped in town, and I'd really like to start with the place that really got us started and was the first to commit so enthusiastically, but so appreciate Yvette Robinson and what the North Sarasota Library did. It's been an enormous gift to our membership. That's where we meet. Since the loop system has been in, our participation and attendance has more than doubled. And Yvette Robinson from the North Sarasota Library. I see some other organizations here, Alderman Oaks. And do we have any other vendors here that have one in place? Oh, we'll be getting to you, but yes, we know that Van Wezel really kicked us off here. Mary Bensel is here. And we'll have some more comments on it in a moment, but this was the first major theater, and this is really what's got us over the hump here. I'd like to now turn it over and to Dr. Sarah Pappas. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce her. She not only understood this potential for the hearing loss, but the theaters in town, but it was her vision, leadership, and passion that really took it to the next level. and it's my total dream come true in really getting the theaters in town here. Dr. Sarah Pappas.
Thank you. It's so nice to be someone's dream come true. The Selby Foundation Board was really honored to be able to award this grant. And I can't help but think of Bill and Marie Selby that over 55 years ago started this foundation. And it's so wonderful that after all this time, their gift that has grown over the years can do so much to help the community. They would be really proud that they were affecting so many theaters. They did love the arts and support them. And so it's just, I have to think of them and honor their memory and their legacy. I think what motivated me the most was my American gumption when I heard from Ed. I said, what is this, a brand new invention? He said, no, they've had it in Europe for years. And that really got to me, that our country that's supposed to be so forward-thinking, so caring about individuals, is so far behind. And so I really was motivated to motivate my board and to get Ed to write a wonderful grant to involve all these wonderful venues to be successful in getting the grant. So it was kind of my competitive nature that got me interested in this. But I also saw what it could do not only for our senior population, but then Ed reminded me of the statistics he just gave you about what % of young people also suffer from hearing loss. So it's not just to accommodate we seniors, but the whole population. The Selby Foundation loves to give grants that are strategic, and we really felt this one was, because it covered our friends at theaters way up by the North Manatee River there, all the way to Venice. So we really felt if we could grant this whole grant, it would make a big difference to our region. And we also like to give grants that motivate other agencies, other foundations, other donors to give. And there's plenty of room here. We really need to support this movement to loop the whole Manatee, Sarasota, and we even represent Charlotte and DeSoto, so we can get out there too. But let's start with Sarasota and Manatee and get every venue so we can be as compassionate and good as Europe. So that's a challenge to all of you. And so that's what the Selby Foundation hopes to make a strategic difference and to make others motivated to give. I also want to thank Ed for his tireless devotion to this and all his board and staff. And he introduced me to people who gave me firsthand stories about what a difference this meant in their lives when they attend a theater or a meeting and they can hear every word. It's that it makes them feel part of the community, part of the room, but part of the conversation, and they now are willing to go out and about and really participate, which is such an important part in developing that sense of community that we want to have here in our area. So Ed, thank you for coming to me, and it's a pleasure to have helped all your different theaters and venues. Thank you.
We can't thank Sarah enough. This would not have happened without her leadership on this, and probably would have taken years to reach the tipping point that we now have. I'd like to now bring to the stage one of our strategic alliance partners, but we have worked with the Sertoma Club here in town. They do some wonderful things, and among them, they are tireless supporters of people with hearing loss. And as I mentioned earlier, they came forward to take Van Wezel and provide this theater with the loop and to make our grant process speeded it up and all. But at the time, Scott Rushing was the president, and I would like to bring him to the stage to acknowledge that and give him a few words.
Well, to borrow a little marketing, now that we're here at the Van Wezel and it is looped, can you hear me now? We were very excited when we had the opportunity to come to the Van Wezel and help them with the hearing loop here, and we're very proud to be the first in Sarasota to have a loop theater, and it really goes with the history of Sertomo. It's an international organization that basically we help children mainly, but all types of people with speech and hearing issues. We have a clinic here in Sarasota, and we really felt that this was a great match for what we do, and we're very proud to be a part of it. And I'd like to thank everybody from the Van Wezel that we've worked with, and obviously Ed for all of his hard work that has brought everything together.
Thank you, Scott. And again, we just thank the Sertoma Club for all your wonderful support. You've been there all the way. This thing would have not gotten started if Van Wezel had not gotten behind it from the get-go. That was the seed. And I can't thank Mary Bensel enough for that. I'd like you to join us on the stage here, because the theaters in town, this was the tipping point, if you will, to get the largest theater to accept it. We had no grant to offer at that time. We were selling the performance of this system, and she and Stephen Brown, the technical director here, were much like me, had never heard of this system. But based on their understanding very quickly and their faith in it, they got behind it, and that started the whole tipping point. Mary, thank you so much. A lot of people have helped on this Let's Loop Sarasota, or Let's Loop SRQ, as we called our effort. And without them, we would have not gained traction in the community to get to this point. But no one has been a greater support and help to me than Norm Olshansky, who at every step of the way has been contributing. His leadership and passion for this project throughout has really sustained me, and I cannot thank you enough for that, Norm. I'd just like to close by saying hearing loss may be invisible today for a lot of people, but hearing loops have the power to transform us into much more active consumers and citizens. We can become the highly visible business building force that so many organizations in today's down economy need. And I hope that many businesses in the area will begin to understand that possibility. I hope the media will help educate people on what the power this has to transform us. I can't thank you enough, and I'd like to turn it now back to Norm.
This really is the conclusion of the formal program, but I did want to mention one other thing. We think that what Ed and the Hearing Loss Association and our phenomenal funders in the community have done has truly will, as these are all installed, turn our community into the most hearing-friendly in the nation, and it's going to have some national significance.
Well, how a hearing loop basically works is that you have an amplifier that will connect to the venue's sound system or amplifier. In addition to that, there's a loop of wire that's installed strategically throughout the venue itself. And as sound is entered into the system via the microphones or whatever audio source it is, it creates an electromagnetic field that fills that area up. And as a person activates their telecoil component on their hearing aid, it induces or connects that information together. Some of the intricacies with doing an installation, especially at a venue like Van Wezel with the immense size that it is you can't do a basic perimeter loop like is common in many smaller venues such as a church, as an example, or a meeting room. At a venue like this, it takes a very specifically engineered system because you want to have a nice even distribution of signal throughout the entire room. So no matter where a person would sit, from performance to performance, they're going to get the exact same signal or signal strength each time. So the experience is uniform. In addition to that, there's some international standards that we try to meet in terms of that signal. So if a person comes from overseas and uses the system here, it sounds exactly the same as it does at home. Yeah, that's right. As long as their hearing aid or cochlear implant is equipped with a telecoil or a T-coil component, they simply have to press a button on their device and it will connect to the system. So they walk into the room, press the button, and they're part of the sound system essentially. Well, to me, it gives me a great deal of pleasure and satisfaction. Obviously, we're a business, a for-profit business, but the rewarding part is to see and hear the stories from people who have experienced it or come to a venue for the first time in many years and actually been able to enjoy it when they haven't been able to do so for quite some time. We hear those stories, those comments all the time where I don't go to movies anymore, I don't go to church or performances anymore because I can't hear, and now I actually can enjoy it.
Well, the Selby Foundation likes to give grants that are really strategic in nature, and we felt that this one, starting in North Manatee County, going all the way through Sarasota down to Venice, would really set the tone that our community wanted to be hearing friendly for the thousands and thousands of people that right now are isolated in their homes and can't enjoy the theater, the arts, community groups, and lectures and so on. So we also like to give grants that motivate others to give. So we want every bank, every church, every big and small business to add the hearing loop so we can truly complete the picture and be a national model.
It's an opportunity for us to really engage from the perspective of our audience every aspect of the theater. It is so important to really follow the storyline, especially in speech, that this opportunity that's been given to us by being one of the theaters chosen, that our audiences are now really going to be part of the production and really get the full enjoyment of every word spoken and every song sung.
And there's absolutely no question, Neal Performing Arts Center is actually the largest venue in Manatee County, and we have found that many, many people have stopped coming that are hard of hearing because they couldn't hear the performance. With this, we're going to be able to welcome these people back, and we also communicate a message to the audience of Manatee County that we are definitely hearing friendly. Programs like Sundays at Neal, the Symphony who comes and performs, and the same is true for the Howard Theater.
We have so many patrons that just have apologized that they really support our programs, but as their hearing has gone with age, they're just not able to enjoy the theater or the music programs we offer as much as they'd like to, and it'd be so nice to have them back. The only reason they can't come, their seeing is fine, their driving is fine, but their hearing, it decreases every year, and it'll be so nice to have them back in a hearing-friendly venue, and we're so grateful to the Selby Foundation for this grant.
Well, I, like 110,000 people here, have hearing loss, and I've missed the theater, I've missed a lot of community activities. And today, we can very soon be headed back to the theater. I had my first engagement in the theater at Van Wezel on October 5th to hear the President's Own Marine Band. And it was the first time in 15 years that I heard everything coming from the stage and could really enjoy a performance. But our vision is to turn Sarasota, Venice, Bradenton into America's first hearing-friendly cities. And I think this is really the start, because hearing loops, which took off in Europe, started when all the theaters got behind them, and we've gotten all the theaters here behind it now. I think that's what makes this area, Sarasota and the two counties, a very, very special place to live. But yes, I think that's what really does separate us from the rest of the country. Everyone has embraced this adventure to really not only help people in the community like me, but to help sustain our vibrant performing arts.
Well, the first thing that really impacted me was how passionate Ed was for this project. And it just made so much sense as something that not only could help people with hearing loss, which was obviously the major thing, But it was also a win-win throughout the community. Number one, it added to the number of people who could come to and appreciate all of these venues. Everybody in this economy is looking on how to increase ticket sales, so it was an easy sell to the theaters, not just because of the technology, but also engaging and expanding participation. The other thing that was very important was that Ed and the Hearing Loss Association were thinking big, not just the Van Wezel, but how they could transform this community into the most friendly hearing community in the nation. And by gosh, they're doing it. This is more hearing-friendly programs here than in New York per capita, in Chicago per capita, in California per capita. We are going to make Sarasota, and the Hearing Loss Association is doing this, the most hearing-friendly community in the nation. And that got me excited because of what it does for so many people. One of the things that we knew was that all of the arts organizations are experiencing difficult economic times. They don't have the staff time, they don't have the fundraising ability to raise the type of funds necessary on their own to do this. So to me, it was a no-brainer to go into all of the arts organizations with Ed and say, look, if we can get the funds, would you participate? That was the key element, so that they felt that this could be a win-win all around without causing a lot of stress on their own organizations. We also did one other thing. We said, if you participate in this collaboration, if we can only get funding for 5 or 6 of the theaters, we're committed to continue to raise funds until everyone who participates initially gets their loop. And that's what happened.